Hello and welcome. I'm Alex Goddard. I'm head of the Doctoral College at the University of Leicester, and I'm here to talk to you about postgraduate research. I'm joined by a number of colleagues that will be manning the chat and being able to answer questions. And I'd like to introduce you to Paul, who's also supporting here.
Hello there, Paul from the Student Welfare Service as a student funding advisor.
Thank you, Paul. And there are a number of colleagues from admissions that will be supporting in the Q&A, so please do pop questions as you go through the session. So don't wait till the end. We might not answer them until the end, but do put them in the chat. So a warm welcome from a sunny University of Leicester, UK. And to go over some facts of the University of Leicester, we are top 10 in the UK for student experience. We're 25th in the world and in the UK and 192nd in the world in the university rankings. We're 28th in the UK for the Good University Guide and 5th in the UK for research quality from the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. And what we're going to talk about today is what is a research degree, so helping you to understand what a research degree is and how it fits in the UK education system, looking at what you would actually undertake doing a research degree. Then we'll go on to how do you apply and look at what a first week might look like for each of you. So a research degree comes in many different forms. It might be a Doctor of Philosophy, commonly known as a PhD, and this is normally the most common one that people are aware of. But you can also do a DSoc-Sci, an MD, a PsyD, a DClin-Sci, or an MPhil. And you might know it by other terms such as postgraduate study or postgraduate research, doctoral study or doctoral research. In terms of the UK education levels, the research degree sits at the top of the pyramid. So you'd start at primary school around 4 or 5 years old. You'd then go on to doing your GCSEs around 16, A-levels or BTECs around 18 years old, and then you'd go on to an undergraduate degree, a bachelor's either of arts or science or similar, and that's normally a 3-year programme. You might then go on to a taught master's degree known as a PGT, and that is normally a year or so as a programme. And then after that is the research degree, so a PhD, a DSoc-Sci, an MD and equivalent. And what does it involve? So a research degree is not like a taught syllabus. You don't do many taught modules at all, and you have quite a lot of freedom to research a topic in quite a great amount of detail. So to undertake a research degree, you'd have to contribute an original research to the field, to the sector. So you're looking at something that's not been looked at before and sharing it with the world. It's also about developing you as a researcher and a professional so that you're trained and skilled and ready to carry on developing and pushing at the boundaries. And through doing the PhD or a research degree, you build a range of generic and specific research skills and transferable skills for onwards employment. And as I've said, it is a pinnacle research degree. It's a commitment to a project that's normally 4 years full-time or currently 7 years part-time. But what does a typical PGR look like? So a PGR is a postgraduate researcher, one that's undertaking a research degree. And as I said, we've got many different research degree programs available. You can also study either on the campus or remotely, known as distance learning, from anywhere in the world. You can study full-time or part-time. You might be funded through different bodies such as UKRI, which is a UK government-funded research and innovation board, a research charity. You might be sponsored by your own government attaché or employers or similar, or you might be funding your studies yourself. You also have many home individuals, those from Europe and those from around the world as well, that the international student. And you might have studied in the UK before. This might be your first time studying in the UK. And to give you an idea of numbers, around 80 to 90% of our PGRs study on the campus, with the kind of 15-20% studying remotely. Around 70% study full-time, so 30% study part-time. And of our PGR body, around 50% are international, with over 100 nationalities represented. So it's quite a diverse mix of individuals, of research disciplines and cultures coming together. So given that variety, you might be asking the question of what does a research degree look like? What is a typical structure? Now, there isn't so much as a typical structure of a linear pathway, such as you might do module 1 then module 2, but most of the research degrees will start out with a literature review. So you'll be looking at what's happened recently in your field, in your sector and area, and looking at some of the related areas of research. So what is the current state of that research in your field? What is the gap that you're contributing, and what has already been done that you can build on? Now, all research degrees will require, as I've said, conducting original research, and you will need to collect your own results and do your own research and get data gathering. Now, the end result that most people are aware of is that you have to produce a thesis, a written document that presents your research, your findings and your conclusions. And the way that research degree is assessed is through something known as a viva voce, and that's an oral exam that's normally between a couple of examiners and yourself, discussing your work, discussing your thesis, and understanding the original contribution you've made and how you've collected the results and undertaken the research. Now, there are checks within that, so there are annual milestones, progress reviews that happen every year to check your progress, that you're being supported and that you're on track to be awarded that research degree at the end. You also have regular, normally monthly supervisory meetings, so that's meetings with your key academic supporters, and you'll also be undertaking a large amount of development and training alongside the research. And to complete the thesis, you will draw on a range of support, and there is a lot of people at the University of Leicester that are on hand to provide support. So your day-to-day contacts, the main people providing you with support, are your supervisory team. You normally have 2 or more supervisors that are researching in the field of your study, and then they can provide the academic and guidance to help you through that study, and then mentor you throughout your programme. As I said, I'm head of the doctoral college, and so the doctoral college here provide the administrative support. We deliver training around 200 to 300 workshops a year, as well as providing career development support, employability skills and other development opportunities to help you succeed. We have a large library on campus that has an even larger digital repository, so you can draw on their resources, their collections. They also provide training and other development opportunities. Within the University of Leicester, we have 4 core academic areas known as colleges, and these provide the technical and discipline-specific training and will be your host organisation within the institution. In terms of your own personal well-being and support, we have dedicated student support service teams around well-being, welfare, accessibility. They're all on hand to provide support and well-being support as you need it as you go through your study. And as with most universities in the UK, we have a students' union. That's an organisation run by students for the students to provide support and advocacy. And each area will have a PGR representative, so that's someone from your body that represents the students and works with the students' union and academic colleagues to carry on that advocacy and ensure that you've got support as you need. Now, if we move on to the costs of undertaking a research degree, so because the structure is a little bit different to the undergraduate and postgraduate talk programmes, so is the finances and the funding. So the tuition fees vary by programme, and if you look on our subject pages, on each page it will detail the different costs of whether you're campus-based or distance learning and part-time and full-time tuition fee costs. Those are the core costs that every researcher will need to ensure are covered. You will also want to undertake training and development, and you'd need to think about how you might cover the costs of conferences, workshops, specialist training, or other resources that you might want to obtain for your own skills and development. In terms of the actual research project, you might need to use lab resources, you might need to travel to archives, you might need to conduct surveys, attend field work, and to have a think about where you might need to go, what you might need to complete a project, and that will have a cost associated with it. And possibly the most important one is that during your research degree, you're going to need to sustain yourself and consider the cost of living. How are you going to support yourself financially whilst you undertake a research degree? Now, there are some sources of funding. Many of these are open to all applicants. So on our funded research pages, we do have some university projects that are advertised, and they will usually come fully funded, as will those with the research bodies and charities. So the fully funded projects will provide the fee support, the living cost, and other costs and contributions. We also have projects that might be sponsored by industry or other non-university bodies, and those in the UK or the UK nationals might be able to obtain financial support from Student Finance England. Where we have funded projects available, they will be listed on our funded opportunities page. Now, in the UK, it's quite typical that funded opportunities are advertised in the kind of September to December window, with closing dates for applications in the December to March bracket. So if you've had a look at the page and can't find something that suits you at the moment, do check back in a few months, and there might be new projects with different funding allocations that are available. Those funded opportunities usually have quite set start dates. And so if you find a project advertised in, let's say, October, the start date for that might be the following September. And in order to be eligible for that funding, you would have to either submit or accept a project that's advertised, and you would have to comply with those start dates. Funding offers are generally very highly competitive. There is a lot of interest, so do take time to either develop your proposal or polish your application. And as I've said, these funded projects will usually provide everything that you need to undertake your research degree. So that will cover the tuition fees, provide you with a living allowance known as a stipend, and this is equivalent to a tax-free salary in the UK. That funding programme will also cover the cost of the research and the delivery, and they normally provide a dedicated development programme for a cohort of individuals that have applied and started together. Now, funded projects are not the majority of study methods at this university. A large proportion of our PGRs, the vast majority, do not have a funded project, as I've just explained. And if you're looking to apply with your own topic or self-fund your research degree, do look at and think deeply about the topic. It might be building on from something you undertook in your bachelor degree and your master's degree, or something that's linked to those or your professional background that genuinely interests and excites you. And then once you've thought of that topic, start developing it into a research proposal. You might want to look at some supervisors, and you can find lists of available supervisors on our University of Leicester web pages, and they're outlined their research interests, how to contact them. So if there are abilities to get in contact, do drop them an email, share your proposal, and hopefully you'll be able to work on it together to get it ready to start a PhD or a research degree project. Now, there are different eligibility requirements for different subjects. So do have a look at the subject pages that I've mentioned before, and we can put a link in the chat. And on each of those pages, they will detail not just the finances, but any specific eligibility requirements, any previous skills or education pathways or subject areas that you might need to have undertaken to be able to study in that area. And on those subject pages towards the bottom is the link on how to apply. So you can click there on how to apply, and it'll guide you through what you need to provide and to make your application. And having gone through that whole application process, you're probably now thinking, what do I actually do in my first week? What do I do when I arrive? So the typical start is similar to an undergraduate or postgraduate or master's programme. It normally begins with registration. And then we will provide specific welcome programs. So we provide a university doctoral welcome to all our new PGRs. We then provide further specific training in that first week to help you get started, such as how to work with your supervisory teams and how to manage your timelines. You'll be able to join in with the regular university induction and welcome activities. So do take part in things all across campus, put on by a range of bodies and support teams. We also highly encourage you to agree to meet with your supervisors in that first week, get to know each other, discuss how often you're going to meet, how you're going to communicate between meetings, and discuss what your hopes and dreams are for the for the research degree. What do you want to go on to afterwards? After you've got that award and that degree certificate, what's next for you? And then your supervisors can look at how they can support you, not just through your research degree, but also onwards and afterwards. And as I've said, start looking at your training and development. What skills do you need to be able to complete that research degree? What's of interest to you that you've not done before and that you think you might need to build? And what skills do you think you want to build for either personal pursuits or for what comes after your research degree? So that is a very quick overview of what is a research degree. I hope you found that interesting. If you do have questions, do pop them in the Q&A and we will take some now. So there's one question around the in-person attendance. So if you're studying as a campus-based PGR, we would expect you to live fairly close to the University of Leicester and be able to attend fairly often. How often you actually need to attend is based on the research that you're doing. If your research is lab-based, either a wet or dry lab, you're likely to need to do the majority of your research in that lab. So you might need to attend at times 5 days a week. If your research is visiting archives, you might spend some of your time traveling around the country rather than at the university. You would typically attend on-campus training. We have lots of sessions on in any given week. You'd meet with your supervisors in person and you'd want to network and collaborate and explore the research of other individuals to help you succeed with your own research. So it's one of those that is a slightly open statement, I guess, but if you're looking at on-campus attendance, we would expect you to be on most days during a week, undertaking research and getting involved in the broader research environment. So as the second question's on about how to apply and whether you have to have a topic in mind. There are broadly two routes to applying for a PhD specifically, and it depends to an extent what your discipline background is, the area of interest. So there will be a number of projects that are advertised on our find a PhD type pages. And so you can apply for a written project that has been developed by the supervisors and join their research group in delivering that research. Or if you have an idea of something that you want to write that you are very passionate about and might build on your previous experience, you can develop and write your own proposal and provide that with some potential supervisors to discuss whether it's viable and whether they have the expertise to support you with that. But typically, you would have a project that is mostly scoped out or initially scoped out at the point of starting. So yes, you would need to know what project you're doing when you start, but there are multiple routes to getting an agreed project to start with. So there's a question on, with the initial contact with potential supervisors, how informal can the write-up of a research idea be? There isn't a straight answer to that one. It depends on, in a way, the research area, the topic that you're looking at. But most supervisors would expect you to have a draft title, something to the extent of a strapline, think of a few research questions or things that you want to explore over the course of the research degree. You might have thought about the methods that you want to use. If you're doing interviews, the number of people you might want to interview, or the demographics of people that you're looking to involve in your research. And so I think it is taking a bit of time to think about a working title, research questions, some objectives, some research methods, and then it's looking for the supervisor's support with polishing that further, refining it, and generating a rough timeline. Okay, I hope you found this session useful. If you do have further questions, please do email pgapply@le.ac.uk, and please also visit our web pages that describe the process, the funding, projects that are available, and the other aspects around the research degree process. So thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see you on campus in the future.